more of the tactical teams. It looks like an officer putting on a weapon there. I believe News Center Maine Sam Rogers is also in that area standing by for us. Both he and Alex have been covering this from the very start last night. Sam, rather, if you can hear me, can you just paint a picture for viewers about what this has been like just over the last 24 hours here?
Yeah, Zach, and just really quickly, just because we do have the higher ground on Alex, just the latest we've seen, that tactical truck moved in, seen some different spotlights every now and then. But, I mean, it's been more than 24 hours of just grief and confusion and frustration from all over the state. And you guys showed a map on screen showing Bowdoin, Lisbon, Lewiston. Those were the three communities clearly impacted the most from all of this, and that is where we've been spending a lot of our attention. I was in Lisbon Falls last night. We had crews out around the state ever since we first heard of shots fired in Lewiston around 7 p.m. last night. It's been active scenes all over the place. Everyone that you're listening to, for the viewers back home, we have all been on multiple breaking news scenes, whether it is standoffs, search warrants, drug arrests, whatever. It has had a lot more intensity turned up a little bit, because we know that there was this active shooter, there was this manhunt. So instead of...
Right. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the lab. And it sounds as though there is some movement here in the case of Robert Card, and that they have surrounded a home of his about 15 minutes from where the multiple shootings have taken place. And so they are surrounding the area. You can see that they have cameras, there's helicopters, a lot of police presence, and we'll just have to see. Hopefully he's in there. They're telling him to come out with his hands up. They have said that. However, so far, nothing indicating that he is giving up, or, I mean, they must think that he's in there because there's a heavy police presence. So let's go ahead and just take a listen.
Camera viewfinder, we did see armed law enforcement officers walking towards the area of the house. Some more lights coming on. The helicopter still in that similar loop, and none of the reporters here, again, the dozens of reporters and cameras and photographers here, no one has left. If anything, it actually just in the past 10 seconds, everyone's really kind of stopped talking, as we're starting to see more lights. And Scout, if you can turn the camera around.
I would just jump in here, Sam, really quickly and tell you that there are certain things that we are not showing specifically because we don't want to jeopardize what police are doing on scene. Just want to clarify that with you, that we are not on your camera right now, just because we don't want to jeopardize what's going on there. But what we are seeing are cars moving in and out.
You don't want to, yeah, there is a big procession here. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cruisers. Scout's gonna get a better angle here, and then Alex and Adam, if you guys want to turn your camera to your left, everyone's kind of getting down on the road. It looks like this first vehicle is a tactical truck. Again, as they're slowly making the way, and once they get closer to the camera, you'll be able to see how tight of a road this is, and how many reporters are truly here.
I mean, he's got to be in there. You would think that he's got to be in there. When I turn the volume down, is it going down on your guys' end too? And then when I stop, it goes back up? Thank you.
Anyone at home is whether we cannot see.
Is it too loud? My mic is loud. Too loud? Too loud? Mic is loud. Too loud? Too loud?
We're about 20 yards up on that hill. Tough to see in.
As you can tell, these are vehicles that are leaving the scene, as far as you can tell, Sam.
Yes. Yes, Amanda. We were able. Go ahead. Oh, can you guys hear me? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if they've had any contact with him, but they have told him that he needs to come out with his hands up and empty, obviously. But I don't know about the contact.
Up. So yes, in theory, these cars are making their way out. Again, I'm whispering right now. It's very quiet. Again, we don't know if any suspect is inside any of these vehicles. Don't know which one it would be. Again, we can't see inside. There's some cruisers in the back that it's just law enforcement officers bringing up the rear of this procession.
Is that better for
through the Bowdoin home?
For the news?
Yeah, there's again, you can see now how tight the cars are on both sides. It goes this way for probably almost a quarter of a mile. So this is going to take a while for all these vehicles and law enforcement officers to get back onto a main road here in Bowdoin.
And we are continuing to wait word from public safety officials about why they may be clearing this scene here in Bowdoin. I know it's been a few hours now, right, that they have been at this scene, or it was a little after 7 o'clock that they had told our reporter Alex Haskell to turn the lights off. So interesting to see things moving out now.
Yeah, and you can see the sheer number of reporters there, but let's also not lose sight of the number of law enforcement personnel that have been brought into the state. We were told earlier by Michael Soschuk, the commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, that over 350 law enforcement personnel
Are they leaving the area?
Taking part in this manhunt. I spoke earlier.
Are they leaving Are they really leaving the area?
With the U.S. Attorney General.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
The FBI, of course, is involved in this, including the same teams that were responsible for catching the Tsarnaev brothers after the Boston bombing incident. So all resources being brought to bear here tonight. And right now it's obviously unclear whether or not they were successful in apprehending anyone from that house.
How's that? Can you hear better now?
Actually, from viewers that there was a feeling of that manhunt in this last 24 hours from the Tsarnaev brothers, the Boston Marathon bomb, that there was just such a concentration of, we need to find these people, we need to understand what's going on, don't leave your homes.
Thank you, Angel.
The closest thing that some people could
Good to see you.
That was the closest feeling that we have experienced necessarily of that. And just a very different experience. But, we're still looking at this property in Bowdoin right now, where there are clearly at least some officers there. We see their lights on. We see the lights on the house there as well. But the mystery question tonight remains, was he in there? Right. Is he in there?
And I apologize. I was corresponding with somebody else by phone. Do we understand, did that kind of caravan of vehicles leave the scene?
Yes, they were leaving.
More or less leaving. Yeah,
it appears
that's
way,
the road that Sam said they came in on. Whether they are leaving, we don't know.
Sure. Okay.
And we don't know how many more tactical units are still there.
Right.
I think we should check in with our reporters on scene there again. And Alex, can you kind of set the stage for us on what the scene is like now? It's now that so many vehicles have cleared out.
Yeah, I would say the scene is kind of the same from what we can see. The road is still dark. They're still shining some lights.
So this house, I just want to tell you, is on a big acreage of land. And so he could have very well been in the house at some point. They were calling for him to come out. He could have fled into the field. They may not be out leaving. They may just be repositioning. So we'll see. Or maybe not.
See Robert Card. I was looking as other folks were shining their lights, and this does not mean that he's not in those vehicles or was, but I just could not make out any faces. So that was the scene. We're kind of getting ourselves collected again, all focused on this home where things are quiet and still. Once again, on Meadow Drive here in Bowdoin, we still have some cop lights up the road here, and then just the armored vehicle and possibly another one in the driveway of this home here. And we do have, I want to remind folks, we just have dozens of reporters and photographers gathered in a neighbor's driveway, right where I am on the right side of the road, and on the left where Sam Rogers is. That is a part of the many large fields here along this stretch of road, because we are in rural Maine with some tree lines off in the distance. We have that helicopter that's above us, and it's really interesting just standing here being in the dark with all this equipment. It's normally all lit up. We have lights on so that you can see us reporters and make out some of the landscape while we're doing our reports, but that is not the case in this situation. As we were told, it's a dangerous situation. That's what law enforcement told us. For that reason, we had to turn off all our lights on our vehicles. We just have our phones, and I'm looking at all the people here, and all their faces are kind of glowed up as we're looking at our phones here. It's an interesting scene here. But looking at this house, not much has changed. We still have just some lights shined on it, and that's about it right now. Not sure if it's worth mentioning, but kind of want to remind folks what brought us here in the first place. Law enforcement earlier in the day were executing a search warrant of a home. They believe, we were told by NBC News, that was somewhat related to Robert Card. And this is where we are now. We saw law enforcement come and leave. They arrived to this home and started saying things like, Robert Card, we know you're in there. Again, we don't know. That's the big question here tonight in Bowden. Is Robert Card in this home? Was he in this home? Did police, law enforcement get him? That is the big question tonight. But they were trying to communicate with someone maybe inside who they said is Robert Card. They were saying that they know that you're in there. Come out with your hands up with nothing in them. They wanted him to come out into the driveway with his hands up. They were also saying that we can guarantee your safety. We don't want to hurt you. So those were some of the things that we were hearing from law enforcement, but that was some time ago. We have not heard law enforcement speak again for some time. And of course, we saw many vehicles here clear out. And the big question is why they were clearing out.
Well, that's a great question, Alex, because as you mentioned, it was a little after 7 o'clock that police had come up to you and the other reporters and said, this is a dangerous situation. Please turn your lights off. At this point, we have no reason to believe it's not still a dangerous situation.
Yeah, exactly. So we're all kind of back here letting law enforcement do their job. I'm looking at the house. They are moving a light around on the home, still shining a light in windows. So that is some movement and activity that we haven't seen for a little bit. So they are moving a light around on this home. And I have to wonder, what neighbors are thinking. We've mentioned it, that it's rural Maine. There are some fields here, so there aren't many homes in this area, but there are some homes. We are in a neighbor's driveway. It was an older couple that we spoke with earlier. We were just asking if we could stand.
Just so you know, I got the volume absolutely cranked on the news station, so I really am trying to. It's not loud, I know. I've got it cranked on my end, so hopefully you can hear.
They're likely asleep, and I'm looking at another neighbor's home in front of us on the same side of the road that we're on, a little past this home of interest. They have their lights on, so you can help but wonder kind of what's going through their minds.
Right.
But luckily, we have no homes located near this one home of interest here.
I can't imagine that couple is asleep based on all of the activity outside. But hopefully, to your point, Alex, hopefully heeding that warning of shelter in place. And police have been asking people all day in Bowden and in Lisbon and in Lewiston to shelter in place. We know Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office asked just an umbrella ask of that shelter in place for the entire county of Androscoggin.
Yeah, and I want to be careful about any kind of speculation, but I think it's important to note some reporting by our media partners at the Press Herald earlier today, talking about one of the other homes on that road that owned by the Card family. They were told by neighbors that it's been vacant for some time, so that's another possibility as well. But of course, we do not have that independently confirmed.
And this has been a search that has extended well beyond 24 hours. Our coverage has been on air here well beyond 24 hours, but we know that this search for Robert Card has been on both land and on sea. We know 350 plus law enforcement officials have been involved in this search for Robert Card. And Chris, you've been speaking with some of these law enforcement officials too.
Yeah, and actually, just most recently, I've actually been speaking with some friends of these victims, people who have been listening to our coverage and just for whatever reason they picked me to send some messages, but they're talking about, for example, somebody who went to high school with Ron Morin, that softball umpire, Coca-Cola merchandiser who
Thank you.
Work with the local Hannaford supermarkets to get them supplied. And this person's telling me that he was a great man, father, husband, friend, one of the best people this person's ever met. Everything you hear about him is true, according to this person. They went to high school together. Also hearing some other details that we really need to work to confirm about other information related to some of the victims. And as we get more concrete details, we'll bring those to you. But again, out of respect for the family, it's just, and the people involved, people who know them, we need to wait before we put some of those details out there. I know that for a lot of people who are reading things on social media, it's, well, wait a minute, we know the picture is out there. We know that this person who says they're his brother or their daughter has said this person's passed away or they're in the hospital.
Right.
It is so difficult in this age where anybody can create any social media account, steal pictures from the internet and claim to be somebody else, which is why we have decided to be so sensitive and delicate about how we put out this information. The last thing we want to do is be incorrect and have it affect somebody's lives in a drastic way.
Right. And Chris, we're now seeing some movement here in this field that Alex has been talking about that separates the reporters and this home.
I was just going to jump in, guys, real quick. We are seeing some movement, not too much, but just some law enforcement members coming from the home, walking across this field here, back onto the road. They look like they are in some heavy gear, walking back to their vehicles. But they are still shining some lights on that home of interest here where they believe or had suspected that Robert Card was staying, and we can see a dog. I don't know if you guys can make that out, but a member of law enforcement has a dog with them, and they were just coming from that home and now putting that dog back in the car, and law enforcement walking back up the road. So that's what we're seeing here now. Things have kind of quieted down. We're just all kind of watching to see what happens next, but we have seen fewer law enforcement vehicles here along the road. Things just quieting down.
All right, so they're not really saying much right now. Heavy law enforcement presence at either his house or his parents' house or family. They have homes in the area. They had pulled up and made audible requests as if he was in there, but they don't know, or I don't know if they know. I don't know if he is in there or not. However, a lot of police have taken off, some SWAT as well. So we're just all kind of wondering the same thing, including the news people. So I don't know.
Going to a address that they believe this suspect could be in, they're coming at this from a reactionary standpoint. When they enter that home, they don't know what is inside. They've never been inside this home. They don't have a floor plan of the home. They don't know where any potential suspect could be in that building, which is what makes it difficult for them, because this is all reactionary.
And we heard some of that from the spokesperson for public safety as well.
Right. So the last notice we got from Shannon Moss, who's the public information officer for the Maine Department of Public Safety, was at 6:02. So just about 3 hours ago now was the last official note we got from there, saying law enforcement is at a home in Bowdoin, which is the scene you're looking at right here, as part of the investigation into the Lewiston shootings and the search for Robert Card. When it's appropriate to do so, additional information will be released. And that what we were hearing was typically what is done when a search warrant is being executed. And again, earlier today, we were told that there was a warrant out for Robert Card for those 8 counts of murder.
And Alex was there, and Alex could hear much better than we could on that loudspeaker. Alex, some of what police were saying, what were you hearing out there?
8 counts of murder.
Yeah, so they said Robert Card. That was the first thing they said. They said his name, Robert Card. We know you're in there, in this home. So they said, Robert Card, we know you're in there. They said, come out with your hands up, with nothing in them. They also asked him to come out and stand in front of the truck in the driveway. We said this multiple times, that there's a little bit of a hill blocking this home in the driveway, so we can't see a truck, but we heard law enforcement mention that truck and ask Robert Card to stand in front of it. We also heard law enforcement say, we can guarantee your safety and we don't want to hurt you. So those were some of the things. We are a little ways away, so sometimes it was hard to make out everything they were saying, but they mostly repeated those statements over and over again until they just stopped. And that brings up a question as to why. We might get an answer tonight, we might not. So it is something that we are just continuing to listen and have our eyes on. And
so I mean, that makes sense. If they don't have, I mean,
right now we still have
charging him with 8 counts of murder is really, it is the first step. And
behind us here.
but you know, we start with, well, he's not a suspect, or no, that he's a person of interest, but yet you see him carrying a gun down the street with pictures. So I mean, I guess I do understand that.
Looking at this house now, we are seeing some vehicles reposition, backing out of the driveway, and less light on the home compared to earlier.
Yeah, so by all definitions, it appears the scene is clearing there. But we are staying in constant communication with the Maine Department of Public Safety. Their public information officer, Shannon Moss, her last update was at 7:52, so about an hour ago, a little over an hour ago, reminding us that those calls we heard that Alex just mentioned are standard protocol. It's how they announce themselves when they're executing these warrants. We're told there are several warrants.
Well, the only reason I was kind of taken aback by the 8 is the fact that they have already charged him with them. I mean, obviously they have to have proof and whatever, but I mean, he is the suspect. So I guess it kind of puts a little bit more pressure, like, hey, we have charged this man with 8 counts of murder and probably more pending. Not probably, more pending.
From state police and the Department of Public Safety.
You know, if in fact this turns out to be what it appears, that the suspect they're looking for is not in that home, this is, you know, just kind of another layer to the people who are staying in their homes tonight as part of this shelter-in-place order, wondering when that order will be lifted.
Thank you,
when
Nice
can
Marie.
they resume normalcy in their lives? And what we're already seeing is that places like, for example, the Auburn Lewiston YMCA, all locations will be closed until Monday, October 30th. That's through the weekend, right? Many places that we've seen otherwise, like Central Maine Community College, that's for tomorrow. Lewiston Public Schools, that's for tomorrow. This is the first one that I've seen that said we're going to go proactively all the way through the weekend. I don't know if that's a planning purpose. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but the bottom line is, you know, there is this. Oh, sorry, I was hearing some scratching on the microphone. No, just, you know,
That's not me.
There's this uncertainty that people are living with right now.
Right.
And this has got to be very difficult.
Absolutely, not just for folks in that community, but even more so for the families of these victims tonight. because it's a sense of closure, right? We talk about that difficult healing process that we frankly, as a community, as a state, have not even started yet. We're still in the thick of it now.
Still waiting for this.
We are going to check in with New Center Maine Sam Rogers now, who has been on that scene alongside Alex Haskell, has been reporting on this for the last 24 hours. Sam, what are you seeing there now?
Yeah, hey, Zach. So we are down the road where we saw that procession of vehicles, law enforcement vehicles move. We're seeing a big truck here. Once one that passes it by, we can try to see what it says. Yeah, this is one of the tactical trucks. That is, it was tough to see the markings on it, but another wave of law enforcement trucks. Alex, I believe these are the trucks that you said that you started to see moving. So again, we are about halfway down, and I'm just hearing from my photographer Scout, who said those were out of state law enforcement vehicles. She saw New Hampshire and a Massachusetts truck, and those were Massachusetts plates, I believe, on that last cruiser that walked by, that drove by. And similar to what we saw about 20 minutes or so with those main law enforcement vehicles with the lights on pass through, similar number of vehicles just passing by. Again, we're kind of halfway down this road. If you're still taking our camera shot or you saw those trucks drive by, you can, again, just kind of really get a better angle, probably the best angle on how narrow the road is. Alex, not sure if people are clearing out where you are, but we're starting to see some reporters.
I don't even know if he's alive.
And head out as well.
I mean, we don't even know if he's alive at this point, to be honest with you. I mean, I know that they're reacting and that they're doing what they need to do to bring finality to this. But I'm not even sure he's still alive.
Not seeing anything behind us. The scene appears to be completely clear. No lights on the home, no vehicles. They all kind of cleared. We have some members of law enforcement.
What's up, Trev? Thank you.
Not quite sure exactly what they're doing. But yeah, they have cleared out. The scene is pretty quiet here, and you might hear noise around me. There are other reporters, photographers here. We are all gathered in this neighbor's driveway, and across the road here, where there is a field, and crews are also gathered there, and across the road as the scene has just developed. It's quite the development as we saw all the cars leave down this road. So we will see what's next, and if they in fact got Robert Carter or not.
Again, if you're just joining us, we have our reporter Alex Haskell live in Bowdoin at a scene police have had a heavy presence at. We also have our Sam Rogers there. And I want to go back to you, Sam, because as Zach mentioned, this is something that you have been covering since last night. You've been with us since last night. And in fact, last night you were in the scene of an active scene as well in Lisbon. And it does seem like police have been taking all of these scenes as a big group. We know that Robert Card, they keep saying, is considered armed and dangerous. How would you kind of compare the scenes that you've been at?
They have not arrested him yet.
Yeah, Amanda, we actually mentioned this last night. I believe it was Chris brought up a good point about how our law enforcement agencies across the state, whether that's local, sheriff's office, state police, they prepare for these kinds of situations. Of course, this is really the first time they've ever had to deal with a mass shooting type level. But whether it was reporting in the Bangor Brewer area or down in Lewiston for other stories or in Portland, all over the state, they have those strength in numbers. So like we saw last night at Lisbon Falls, if you were with us last night and very early into the morning, just as the car gets out of our way here, you saw 20 to 25 police officers all gathered, all waiting. And then when we would try to find a better access point to maybe gain a little bit more information, maybe try to find a better camera angle, you would drive about a mile down the road and see another checkpoint of law enforcement officers. As we heard today, hundreds of officers, sheriff's deputies, state police, federal agents, all having a hand in this manhunt. And we see that typically, again, like I said a few minutes ago, whether it's a standoff for a search warrant or a drug arrest, we typically see a large number of law enforcement officers because, as Chris also said, they don't know what is going to happen. You want to take that precaution. In the last 24 hours at this point, It's been what happens when.
Let me read this to you. According to CNN update, a spokesman with the Maine Department of Public Safety, Shannon Moss, told CNN law enforcement is, quote, not positive Robert Card is in this house, adding that officials are simply doing they're simply doing their due diligence. So we don't even know that he's in there. They don't know that he's in there. It just sounds like they're looking for him. And so as some, you think, well, something big's happening here. Well, not necessarily. Not even one side, as far as I know, not even one sighting. So I get it. They are reacting to, if you followed the Daniel Cavalcante case, that this went on for days and days, and it can be rough.
Right.
Let us remember that. I think we're all caught up in what's happening right now. But there are hundreds of police officers combing through small Maine towns.
Right.
There are reporters from all over the country, all over the world. You could hear them in Alex's live.
From what I understand, that they have not breached the house as of yet. That's just what I have heard. I don't know that to be the case, but I do not believe that they've breached the house, and I don't believe that they're in a rush to breach the house, because I heard earlier say that since this is not a hostage situation, there's no rush. That's just what I've heard.
The last time we saw a manhunt of this size was back in April of 2018 with the murder of Somerset County Sheriff's Deputy Corporal Eugene Cole. I spoke to his wife earlier today. She being very candid that this has been a truly difficult time for her, glued to the TV like much of the state is. But she said that what's happening in Lewiston and now in surrounding communities brought her back to 5.5 years ago. She said, quote, "Granted, my situation was nothing compared to this one, but the massive manhunt in the aftermath of my husband's murder put this community in such a state of shock and horror. My heart breaks for the Lewiston community."
And it certainly explains why we have continued this on-air coverage for you. I know some people have sent us messages that they're kind of tired of watching, and experts do recommend that you take a break if you need to take a break. But we will stay here with you because there is an active manhunt going on. More than 350 law enforcement officials involved in this. The FBI in the Boston division involved in this. You had more statistics on who was actually part of this investigation as well.
Yeah, so I spoke to Congresswoman Shelley Pingree earlier today. Like many of our congressional delegations, she's been in touch with folks in the Biden administration. She mentioned that she had been in touch with U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, who informed her that the FBI, of course, was involved in this. We have been reporting that for several hours now, that agencies came up from Boston, including the team, according to Congresswoman Pingree, the exact team that was responsible for catching the Tsarnaev brothers after the Boston bombing. And I think when I've talked to folks, even my partner at home earlier today, when we were talking about this shooting, what it means to us as a community, the closest thing was that horrific incident in Boston many years ago. So of course, it's really hitting home for a lot of folks tonight.
And the unknown remains. We just spent 2 hours watching.
So I'm hearing little drips and drabble of a note, possibly, but I have not got any confirmation on that. I've been checking different news sources. If there's a credible news source that you could point me in that direction, I'd take a look, but I cannot find this about the note.
Trying to get closer to this first chapter of what happened last night, because there's so much more to get to.
To Amanda's point, the reason why we are still on air talking about this is what you saw a minute ago in that graphic. Police have considered their suspect, Robert Card, armed and dangerous. There is they have not told us otherwise. That this is this would be considered a public safety threat.
Right.
It is our job as journalists, when there is a public safety threat, whether it be somebody who's armed and dangerous,
What's up, Rick?
like a weather event, severe weather, that we would continue to be with you when lives are in jeopardy. And at this point, police have not told us anything counter to that
message.
So
Right.
that is why we are staying with you through this. Nobody's going to judge you if you turn this off, take a break, go read a book, go stream something else on Netflix, right? Nobody's going to judge you for that, because it's important for all of us to take a break. But we want you to understand, the viewers, why we are here throughout this, because there is a public safety element to this.
And with that, we've been in constant communication with the Department of Public Safety. They've been trying to keep us abreast of what's going on moment by moment, even trying to kind of fact check things in real time. So we're hoping for another update from them this evening. It's unless he happened to be in that home, it's unlikely that's going to come out in the form of a press conference, right? But perhaps even a minor update about what happened there.
Okay, so
is expected.
Let me I'll read this here. So this is from NBCBoston.com. Note found at home of alleged gunman in Maine mass shooting, according to law enforcement officials. A note was found at the home of the alleged Maine mass shooter, according to multiple law enforcement officials. His manhunt was underway to find the man who allegedly killed 18 people and critically injured more than a dozen others after opening fire in multiple locations. It was to 4 senior law enforcement officials told NBC New York that investigators are looking to ascertain the meaning of the note discovered in the home of Robert Card during the course of a search warrant executed at the house. Law enforcement is trying to determine how the note could potentially guide their investigation. The official said multiple law enforcement bodies were still searching for Card late Thursday afternoon, with the town of Lewiston and several other areas of the state still under lockdown. An arrest warrant was issued for Card, a 40-year-old from the town of Bowdoin with a military background, who was initially only being sought for questioning in the case, part of a massive investigation set up by local, state, and federal law enforcement. So thank you guys for pointing that out to me. I appreciate it. So there absolutely is a note. And okay, let me.
Next to the investigation, right? There's the evidence collection. There's the interviewing process of witnesses. So you can't really, quote unquote, clear a scene. I can't imagine that with the amount of forensic evidence these technicians would have to gather, that these would be cleared anytime soon. The other thing to keep in mind too is we have some of these law enforcement officers who have been working as long or longer than we have. Some of them are just getting to take a break after 20 to 24 hours. And keep in mind,
yes, they have they have heat sensors and things like that. But you kind of got to be in the right spot, and it doesn't sound like they're in the right spot at the moment.
Say, okay, hey, we've got a lead. We've got to go and check this out. Oh well, guess what? That person hasn't eaten food for however many hours, but they still have to be ready to act and take action should something arise.
And to that point, healthcare workers also, we know at least 100 of them came in on off duty last night to help out. We do know there are still injured people in those hospitals, and healthcare workers working really hard to help more families have a better outcome here.
It was the chief medical officer for Central Maine Healthcare who said earlier this afternoon, we're getting a lot of support from the community. People are donating food, which is great. One thing that our leadership team has been focused on is making sure that those healthcare professionals.
Yeah. So Ricky Beavis here says, Josh, I believe this man has already killed himself. And that would be my assumption is, who knows where he is, but these kind of guys rarely get taken alive.
Don Kerrigan has been in Lewiston all day. He is still there. He is someone we lean on regularly for his expertise and his history of knowledge in Maine. And Don, you had a unique perspective of being in those press events today where we learned a lot of information, at least what could be shared. So what can you share with us tonight from there, Louis?
Well, it struck me that at the only police briefing we've had today, they were very very circumspect. Let's put it that way. Would not give out much information at all related to if they think about a motive, where they're going to search, what they know or suspect about where the shooter may actually be or may be going or may have gone, as the case may be. Uh, that's fairly typical for Maine law enforcement in cases like this, in situations that are unfolding. They're usually very, very tight-lipped with information. But one thing, Shannon Moss, the spokesperson for the Department of Public Safety, told me this afternoon that they've been getting hundreds of tips on their tip lines that the police have phoned in, and I presume maybe texted, maybe emailed as well. And those all have to get chased down. It doesn't sound like it was one of those that led to tonight's search in Bowdoin. That's probably more normal course of events, searching a property, perhaps related to the family, all of that in the town of Bowdoin, where Mr. Card lives. But they're chasing down all of these tips. They brought in tremendous number of police officers from outside of this area. They're working at a command post, I believe, up at the high school, to go through all of that, check them out, see what seems likely, legitimate, worth following up on, and all of that. And that's kind of going to be, I presume, where they're going next. We don't know if they have any hard tips. They were searching some buildings, looking at some places in Lisbon earlier today. To the best of our knowledge, they've continued searching in the Lisbon area, but again, we have no details of that. This search that sounds like it's pretty much winding down in the town of Bowdoin. I think Rob Caldwell this afternoon, they were talking about how challenging.
Let me read you this tweet because I actually found it entertaining, sort of. Somebody just tweets, they should have Chris and Roberta Laundrie go look for Robert Card. They'd find him right away. Yeah. I was thinking about that as well. I was thinking about this manhunt for, I'd be shocked if it didn't end up kind of the same way.
They came up maybe empty-handed, or at least maybe they know more. If they did find a note, do they know more? Are there some leads coming out of what they found and in there that may be pointing them in some other directions? It's a challenge. We often hear about looking a search for a person, and usually it doesn't take too long. But in this case, it may be a while because they're trying to find this guy, and it's proving difficult.
Don Kerrigan, they're live in Lewiston.
Yeah, and as Don mentioned, as it gets
I'll
dark,
have some
the search
updates.
gets harder. So using that technology of the thermal imaging will certainly come in handy for all of those helicopters that we've heard circling, honestly, for the last 24 hours. So I think we're going to go now. We don't want to lose sight of the victims tonight of this. We actually spoke to a survivor. Chad Hopkins spoke to one of our digital producers, Griffin, and he shared his story and his memories of a friend that he lost, Trisha Aslin. Take a listen.
We had the Apple Valley bowling league, and we take up lanes 1 through 10, I think. But unfortunately for our league specifically, We were near the closest exit of the back of the building. I was in a really good position where it was me, a handful of tables and things, and then there was him at the front counter. So when I saw him looking down at his gun, he was facing away from our group. I turned to everybody at the bowling alley on that side, and I said, "Everybody, get out that exit door right now!" Live shooter, just yelled as loud as I could to get her, and everybody just started running towards that back exit. And part of me is thankful that I was where I was at the time to help and get my mother and my crew out of there to safety. But at the same time, I almost wish that I was up closer to him when he came in, because every time I close my eyes, I visualize myself attacking him. So I mean, those people without shoes on or one shoe on and no phones, no keys, no nothing. And we all just kind of found our way across the street into this well-lit parking lot area. And we're basically kind of taking head counts at that point, like who's missing, who's here, who's not here. Pretty stressful times, because without everybody having their phones, you can't really account for everybody, because, there's 10 people over at Marco's, there's a person in the ditch over there, another couple already, ran off, and then they called someone to come pick them up. So, there's people missing. And Trish was definitely somebody I was looking for, and she didn't make her way out.
Wow. So again, that was Chad Hopkins there, a friend of one of the victims, Trish, as he said, Aslan. They were friends. They worked together at the Apple Valley Golf Course. Chad remembering her as a hard worker, a passionate community member, and a beloved friend. She was also a mother, an avid golfer, and a bowler, someone you would do anything for any time.
And just to kind of recap where we are now and where we all started, we do have a timeline we can run through here. Police first heard of shots fired at Spare Time Recreation at 6:56 p.m. At 7:08, they got calls about shots being fired at Schmenge's Bar and Grill. At 8 o'clock, they released a photo of who they believed to be the shooter. Bates College went into lockdown shortly after that. If you know the area at all, you know that Bates is sort of right in the center of all of that there in Lewiston. Auburn residents and then Lewiston residents ordered to shelter in place right around 8:30. 9:15, police released a photo of the vehicle that they believed Robert Card was in, and that was that white Subaru that they ended.
So I'm looking here, and it says breaking update: police have cleared away from the home of Robert Card, the person of interest. Well, he's a suspect charged with 8 murders. Interest in Wednesday night's mass shooting in Maine. As of right now, he is still at large. They did not find him in the home, nor did they know if he was in there. And it sounds as though they went in there and they did not find him. So he is still at large.
Have to.
And tonight was a good reminder of that, of what we watched unfold in Bowdoin, is that there is still that, from the last messages we got from police, there is still that concern out there that this individual is considered armed and dangerous and not in custody. And that is the part that those hundreds of members of law enforcement from across Maine and New England are here working on right now. And we saw some of that. I'm sure that is just a small fraction of
Matt's here.
Force that is in our communities that we may or may not even.
I think Lulu was here too.
Looking for him right now.
Right, and a moment that we kind of had to take a breath since we've been on the air since this first happened well over 24 hours ago was when NBC Nightly News was on, and we all kind of stopped and looked that the national news was live in Maine covering this tragedy. In fact, Jack Mulmid spoke to Lester Holt shortly after nightly news. I believe that we have that sound for you. Take a listen.
What do you hope people watch and are able to take away at the end of this? We pray that some resolution comes with this, that we find the guy.
Well, certainly. I mean, that's the number one thing, obviously, resolution to get him off the streets. But, this will provoke conversations. Some of them we've had before about guns and mental health. But I think the mental health component is one I think that's going to draw a lot of attention. It's a conversation that needs to be had. And there's plenty of folks who have ways to bring it to action. But I think that's going to be part of the story. Warning signs, how they were dealt with. That's the kind of stuff that we need to learn from. And it's our job as journalists to keep that story out there and provoke that conversation.
For sure. That sounds great. Anything else you feel like that might be worthwhile in this conversation?
No, it's just, when I go to cities, that have been devastated by, mass shootings, people, they're very personal. They want to protect the image of their town. And I always point out, it's not a measure of a city or of a region. It's just something that happened in that particular place, not because of that place. At least that's my experience. I've traveled to so many lovely places, lovely people who have just suffered this unspeakable kind of horror. And what makes it awful as we report it is that we know that we'll be out somewhere else at some point. I hate to be Debbie Downer, but that's the reality of these things. That we will be in another community, and I'll be having, unfortunately, the same conversation with another reporter.
I've been a reporter for 3 years now, and this is the first. I knew it would come one day, but it's shocking.
Yeah, it is. When you're on the anchor desk and you're reporting these kind of stories, that I was last night. You kind of take a deep breath.
All right, I don't care what. Thank you, Lester, for that. I don't even know how to. Let's see. Brandy Neal, your compassion for others despite your own heartbreaking circumstance is truly admirable. You're an extraordinary woman. I agree with that. And thank you for your donation and those words.
Lot in the last 24 hours of we know this has happened in other communities. We've reported on it. We have covered it. And it's in our neighborhood now. And just that perspective that, as Lester said, he knows he will be in another community doing this all again. But it is our turn, and it's our time to process it. Just this evening, Senator Susan Collins was in Lewiston at the latest briefing that we saw at Lewiston City Hall. And we want to share some of what she shared with the public tonight.
It's a dark day for the state of Maine. As the mayor said, our hearts are heavy with grief. This heinous attack, which has robbed the lives of at least 18 Mainers and injured so many more, is the worst mass shooting that the state of Maine has ever experienced and could ever imagine. Today, I looked out my window in Washington and I saw that the flags had been lowered. And I realized that it had been done to honor the victims of this horrific attack.
And I know it's still early, and we do not want to be overly political here, but Lester Holt mentioned the fact that this does spark.
All right, turning that off because I don't want to hear it. But yeah, thanks for the drop, Les. Just love it. Yeah, most credible leads get followed up on, especially when somebody like this is on the loose. So yes,
Congress to ban assault weapons.
Okay. I really don't want to have that conversation. So as of now, still on the loose. If there's any updates, I'll come back on. If there is, if they feel like they're closing in on them or on him, I will come back. So make sure to turn your notifications on. And if you want, head over to, I believe, newscentermaine.com, and you can follow this as well. Like I said, if anything changes, we'll come back and continue to cover this. Now be looking for, we're going to do this little 8-part thing on the After Dark channel, and I'm going to post it. We'll probably start it tomorrow, and it'll be, I think you'll enjoy it. I don't want to give away what it is, but it's going to be an 8-night thing. It's going to be 8 nights in a row, and it'll be a lot of fun. It will, it'll be interesting. I'll tell you that. So be looking for that. Okay. Be looking for that as well. And I will post about it tonight and let you know exactly when it's taking place and what it's about. So just hang in there. You'll enjoy it, I think. Thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Discussed in the press that he had mental health issues, but whether the question is, when did he?
Hold on. Let me. It's not. No, it's not the interrogation tape. We're doing that. I believe this weekend. I am still. There's just some tape that we had to jump through. And anyway, we got it. It's purchased. It's on its way. I should have it in my physical hand, I believe, tomorrow. And then I have to mine through it, which sucks, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then we will do that. Oh my God. Otis has been out of control to the fullest. He's lifting his leg again. It's the whole thing. It's just out of control. Anyway, thank you guys so much. I don't know. I usually don't pay attention to him, but she caught my attention. Well, I'll tell you why. I believe that there was a heavy, I think it was like a deaf bowling league that night. So maybe, yeah, he's healthy. He's nuts. He's mean. He's a little turd. Yeah. He's off his rocker. You know what, Joyce? It's funny that you say Hurricane Otis, because I wasn't aware that the one that hit Mexico was named Otis, and it was really fitting. And I don't mean to make light of it, but when they were talking about it on the news, I'm not kidding. When they were talking about it on the news, and they would say Hurricane Otis, and he would hear his voice, he'd look at the TV. He knows his voice. It's like when I was watching the coverage of it on the Weather Channel, they kept saying Hurricane Otis, and every time they'd say Otis, it's not, Otis isn't a real common name since we're not in the 1930s anymore, but it was just, I found that I was just like, unbelievable. So he knows, he definitely knows his name. And, yeah, he's having a bad week, folks. All right. They do. They smell like piss all the time. And I'm like sitting there scrubbing them, scrubbing their face. Otis fights me, and Macho's kind of cool. He doesn't really care that much, but Otis fights everything. So, yeah. Yeah, he's Otis is a turd, but he's a beautiful little guy. Anyway, thank you guys so much again for being here. And if anything changes, we'll head back. I'll be kind of monitoring social media and stuff. I'm not kidding. That's exactly. And one time when I was watching the Andy Griffith show, and it was a whole thing based on the drunk Otis, which is where I got the name from. They were like, Otis. And he like was like, ah, he was like freaking out. So anyway, yeah. Right. Thank you guys so much. Let me see here. I got a little outro for you guys. This will be my outro intro for a little bit, and I'll change it up. It's just, you know.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? This to me.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? This to me. Rise, idiot.
I've done my best. It's hard, you know, that's real tough.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Live from the NBD Production Studios, you're in the lab with your host, Joshua Diaz.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? This to me. But I have to put her.
What's up?
On the side and worry about the boys. But I have to.
There is no investigation.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Man, what's going on? What's up?
But I have to put her. But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.